All right, let's just dive right into this mountain of cybersecurity stuff you sent over.
Yeah,
It seems like you really want to get a handle on what's what in 2025,
right.
from like the global picture down to how it hits us,
Yeah.
personally. And we've got predictions, threat reports, scam alerts,
hmm
like the whole shebang.
It's a real mix. And from some pretty big names, too.
Oh, yeah.
We've got Palo Alto Networks, Sands Institute, Malwarebytes, even some insights from Microsoft about what they're calling Seashell Blizzard.
Okay.
It's a Russian group that they've been tracking.
Huh. Interesting.
Oh, and you flagged that CISL alert on unforgivable security flaws.
Yeah, that one.
That one sounds kind of ominous.
Yeah, it definitely caught my eye.
Yeah.
So where do we even begin with all this?
Well, you're looking at the big picture. So let's start with those predictions from Palo Alto.
Okay.
They're saying that AI is going to be everywhere in 2025,
Really?
and not just in the ways you might think.
Yeah, I saw they're saying that AI will be a total game changer for cybersecurity pros.
Right?
But how so? Is it just about like automating all those boring security checks?
It's way more than just automation. It's going to be about survival for them.
Really?
Think about just the sheer volume of data that security teams have to deal with these days.
Yeah.
Plus the constant flood of new threats.
Uh-huh.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Right.
That's also on fire.
Okay, wow.
AI can actually help them analyze that data and prioritize threats,
Huh.
and even predict attacks before they happen.
So it's like having a super-powered security guard
Yeah,
who can see the future.
in a way, yeah.
Wow, that's kind of wild.
But there's another side to this.
What's that?
Palo Alto also warns about nation-states using AI
Oh.
for bad stuff, like disrupting critical infrastructure,
Oh, gosh.
or even interfering with elections.
So instead of stealing data, they could like shut down power grids
Exactly.
or cause real chaos.
Imagine a coordinated AI-powered attack on a power grid during a heat wave.
Oh my God.
We're not just talking about stolen data anymore.
Yeah.
We're talking about lives being at risk.
That's terrifying.
It is.
It sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
But then there's the SANS Institute article that you sent me, and it talks about researchers who are already developing tools
Right.
to investigate cybercrime in smart cities. So they're like anticipating these types of attacks?
Exactly. They're thinking ahead.
Before they even happen.
Yeah, they're calling it the SCOPE tool.
Scope.
And it's designed specifically to help law enforcement deal with attacks
Okay.
on smart city infrastructure.
So everything from like traffic lights
Yeah.
to power grids.
Uh-huh. They're recognizing that as cities get smarter, they also get more vulnerable.
Right.
And that's where this tool comes in.
I see.
It's like a digital forensics kit for smart cities.
So it's like they're building the crime scene before the crime even happens.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's some seriously impressive forward thinking.
It is.
But, with all this high-tech AI stuff and nation-state stuff, those Malwarebytes alerts that you flagged,
Right.
they're a good reminder that scammers are still relying on good old-fashioned trickery
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
to get what they want.
It's incredible how effective those simple scams still are.
It really is.
It really shows how important the human element is in cybersecurity.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we could have all the fancy tech in the world,
Right.
but if somebody falls for a phishing email or clicks a bad link,
It all goes out the window.
it all falls apart. Yeah.
Yeah, that Etsy scam you pointed out is the perfect example.
Yeah.
They're using fake invoices that are hosted on a real Etsy domain.
Right.
Which makes them look totally legit.
It does.
I mean, etsystatic.com, who would even think twice about that?
It's a clever tactic,
For sure.
but that's why awareness is so important.
Mm-hmm.
If you know how these scams work, you can spot the red flags
Right.
and protect yourself.
Okay, so talk me through those red flags.
Yeah.
What should people be looking out for?
Well, first, always check the sender's email address.
Okay.
Does it actually end in at etsy.com?
Right.
Or is it some weird variation?
Yeah.
And look at how they greet you.
Uh-huh.
Do they address you by name?
Right.
Or is it just a generic Dear Seller?
Okay.
Real companies usually personalize their emails.
That makes sense.
And of course, watch out for any prayer tactic. Like if they demand you do something immediately,
Yeah.
or say they'll close your account,
Right.
those are classic signs of a scam.
So if it feels fishy, it probably is.
Exactly. Don't click any links in suspicious emails.
Good advice.
Instead, go directly to the Etsy website.
Okay.
Or contact their customer support through a channel it is real to
Okay.
double-check the message.
Got it. It seems like these scammers are always finding new ways to trick people.
They are. It's a constant cat-and-mouse game.
It is, but this other Malwarebytes alert about gambling sites sharing data with Facebook
Yeah.
is just shady.
It is. It's a perfect example of how your data can be used in ways you don't expect.
Right.
These sites are using hidden tracking tools to take your browsing data without your consent
Really?
and sending it right to Facebook.
So it's not even about stealing your credit card details.
Right.
It's about building a profile on you
Exactly.
and using that to send you targeted ads.
That's the goal.
That's really messed up.
It is. And what's even worse is it's not just affecting the people visiting these shady gambling sites.
Oh,
This data sharing is leading to a ton of gambling ads on Facebook,
wow.
which could be a real problem.
Yeah, especially for people who might be struggling with gambling addiction.
Exactly. It's like a ripple effect.
It is.
And it really highlights the need for more transparency and control over our data.
For sure. But let's switch gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about something a little more cloak and dagger.
Right.
That Microsoft report on Seashell Blizzard.
Yeah.
That's where things start to feel like a spy movie.
This is definitely a group to watch out for.
Okay.
Microsoft thinks that Seashell Blizzard is a state-sponsored group out of Russia,
Oh, wow.
meaning they're backed by the Russian government.
So this isn't just like petty cybercrime?
No.
This is serious stuff.
Absolutely. They've been active for years, even before the war in Ukraine.
Wow.
And their specialty is disrupting critical infrastructure.
Gosh.
Remember NotPetya,
Yeah.
that malware attack back in 2017 that caused billions of dollars in damage?
Uh-huh.
Well, Microsoft is saying that was Seashell Blizzard.
Oh, wow.
And what's really worrying is that they don't just use brute force attacks.
Oh.
They're really sophisticated and sneaky.
Huh.
They exploit vulnerabilities in common software
Okay.
to get into systems.
So instead of kicking down the front door,
Right.
they're picking the lock.
Exactly. They've been known to exploit vulnerabilities in Microsoft Exchange and Zimbra.
And those are?
They're widely used email platforms.
Oh, okay.
And once they're in, they can steal credentials, modify DNS settings,
Jeez.
all kinds of things to intercept sensitive information.
And they're not just targeting governments or big corporations, are they?
No, their targets have included all sorts of organizations,
Right.
energy companies, media outlets,
Wow.
and their focus has been expanding. They started out focused on Ukraine and nearby countries, but Microsoft says they've been increasingly targeting the U.S. and UK.
So their reach is global.
It is.
What makes them so effective?
Well,
Is it just their technical skills or?
it's a combination of things.
Okay.
They're obviously very skilled hackers,
Right.
but their ties to the Russian government give them resources and intelligence
Uh-huh.
that most cybercriminals could only dream of.
So it's like they have a whole nation state backing them up.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a pretty scary thought.
It is. It highlights the growing threat of these state-sponsored cyber attacks.
Yeah.
These groups have the motivation and the resources
Uh-huh.
and the expertise
Right.
to launch incredibly sophisticated attacks.
Yeah.
And they're not afraid to use them.
It's unsettling to think that there are groups out there
It is.
with that level of power and sophistication.
Yeah,
Then there's the CISA alert about unforgivable security flaws.
right.
That feels a little closer to home, don't you think?
It does. It's a reminder that even with all this talk of advanced threats and nation-state actors, sometimes the biggest vulnerabilities are just basic coding errors.
So these aren't some newfangled cyber attack.
No.
It's more like leaving your front door unlocked.
Exactly. CISA calls them unforgivable flaws.
Okay.
These are things like buffer overflows,
Huh.
which have been known about for decades,
Wow.
and yet they're still popping up in software today.
So it's not just laziness or negligence by developers.
It's partly that, but it's also about the languages that are used to write the software.
I see.
Some languages are just more vulnerable to these types of errors than others.
Oh, okay.
CC is urging companies to move away from these risky languages and start using safer alternatives.
So like what Google did with Android.
Exactly. So it's not just about fixing those individual errors.
No, it's about changing the way we build software from the ground up.
It is, and it's not just about cost or efficiency either.
Oh,
It's about national security.
okay.
These vulnerabilities make it way too easy for attackers,
Yeah,
including nation-states, to exploit systems
right.
and cause some serious damage.
It's scary to think about all the software that controls our critical infrastructure.
It is.
Power grids, transportation systems, financial networks.
Yeah,
If those systems are full of basic security flaws, it's a recipe for disaster.
it is.
Okay, so just to recap,
Yeah.
we've got AI being used for good and bad.
Mm-hmm.
We've got nation-state launching sophisticated attacks.
Uh-huh.
And we've got companies making basic coding errors that leave us all vulnerable.
Right.
It's a pretty grim picture so far.
It can seem overwhelming,
It does.
but it's important to remember that we're not powerless.
Okay.
We can start taking steps to protect ourselves
Right.
and demand better security from the companies and institutions that we rely on.
That's a really good point.
It's not about giving in to fear.
Uh-huh.
It's about being informed and empowered.
I love that. So what's next on our cybersecurity agenda?
Well, you marked a few articles about individual security practices.
Right.
I think those could be helpful for our listeners,
Okay.
especially with all these new threats emerging.
Okay.
We can dive into those in part 2.
Perfect. Okay, so back for more on this cybersecurity deep dive. Last time we kind of left off feeling
Yeah,
overwhelmed by all the crazy threats and vulnerabilities out there.
it can be a lot.
It can.
Yeah.
But you also sent over some articles about individual security practices.
Right.
So maybe we can shift gears a little
Okay.
and talk about things that we can actually control.
Absolutely. I think it's easy to get caught up in all the big picture stuff,
Yeah.
nation states AI, all that.
Uh-huh. And feel like there's nothing we can do.
Right.
But there's a lot that individuals can do
Yeah, for sure.
to protect themselves.
Like they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Right.
Or maybe in this case, it's like a terabyte of cure.
Terabyte. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So what's the first line of defense? Those articles you sent talked a lot about passwords and two-factor authentication.
Right.
Is that still the most important thing?
It might sound basic,
Yeah.
but strong, unique passwords are still like the foundation of good security.
Okay.
And turning on two-factor authentication whenever you can
Right.
adds a whole extra layer of protection.
Uh-huh.
That can make a huge difference.
So how does that work?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
Even if someone steals your password,
Right.
they still can't get into your account
Uh-huh.
without that second factor,
Okay.
like a code from your phone or a fingerprint scan.
So it's like having a deadbolt on your digital front door.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it way harder for attackers to break in.
Good.
And the good news is most websites and online services offer two-factor authentication these days.
They do.
So there's no excuse not to use it.
All right, good point. But passwords and two-factor authentication, that's all about protecting our accounts.
Right.
What about those phishing scams we talked about?
Oh, yeah.
How can we avoid falling for those?
Well, that's where vigilance comes in.
Okay.
You got to think of every email, every text, every social media message
Right.
as a potential trap.
Okay.
Don't just click on links or open attachments without...
Yeah, I've been guilty of that.
We all have.
Okay, so what should we be doing?
Hover over links to see where they really go.
Okay.
Do they match the sender's domain?
Right.
Be careful of messages that try to make you panic
Uh-huh.
or pressure you into doing something quickly.
Okay.
And always remember, real organizations will never ask for your passwords or personal info over email or text.
So it's all about being skeptical
Yeah.
and double-checking before you click on anything.
Exactly.
Okay, good advice. And if something seems off, we should report it, right?
Yes. Definitely most email providers and social media platforms
Right.
have ways to flag phishing attempts,
Okay.
which helps protect everybody.
Good to know it's not just about being cautious online, though, is it?
No.
Those articles also talked about keeping our software up to date.
Yes, that's important.
And full disclosure,
Yeah.
I am totally guilty of ignoring those update reminders.
I think we all are.
Sometimes.
It's so tempting to just click remind me later.
It is. But why are updates so important?
Well, those updates usually include security patches
Okay.
that fix vulnerabilities that attackers could use to get in.
Huh.
It's like patching holes in your armor.
Oh, okay.
The longer you wait, the more vulnerable you become.
So it's not just about getting the latest features.
No.
It's about closing those security gaps.
Exactly. And it's not just your computer or phone either.
Oh.
Make sure your router, smart home devices,
Right.
and anything else that connects to the internet is also running the latest software.
Okay, got it. Update.
Pretty much.
But even if we're doing all this stuff, strong passwords, two-factor authentication, avoiding phishing scams, updating our software,
Right.
it still feels like there's so much that's out of our control.
I understand that.
Like, what about those unforgivable coding flaws?
Yeah.
What can we do about those?
It's a good question.
We're not all software engineers.
Right. We can't all write secure code.
Yes. It's like,
But we can choose who we trust with our data.
okay.
Start paying attention to the security practices of the companies you do business with.
Uh-huh.
Do they have a good track record?
Okay.
Are they transparent about their security practices?
All right.
Do they use memory-safe coding languages?
Got it.
It might take a little research,
Yeah.
but it's worth it to know that your data is in good hands.
So it's like voting with our wallets for better security.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask questions,
Right.
contact customer support,
Uh-huh.
and ask about their security practices.
Yeah.
If enough people start demanding better security companies, we'll have to listen.
That's a good point. We often feel powerless as consumers.
We do.
But we do have a voice.
We do.
But all this talk about security can get pretty overwhelming.
It can.
It's easy to feel like we need to be cybersecurity experts.
Right.
Just to use the internet
What do
safely.
you mean? But here's the thing.
What's that?
You don't have to be an expert to be safe online.
Okay.
It's more about having the right mindset,
Okay.
developing good habits, and just being aware of the risks.
Okay.
And remember, It's a journey, not a destination.
Right.
You don't have to do everything perfectly all the time.
That makes me feel better.
Just focus on making small improvements over time,
Okay.
and you'll be on your way to a more secure digital life.
I like that's reassuring. Okay, so we've covered individual security practices, passwords, two-factor authentication,
Right.
being cautious about phishing, updating our software,
Yep.
choosing companies that actually care about security.
Yes. Very
What
important.
else is there?
Well, there's one more thing that people often forget,
What's that?
but it's super important.
Okay, tell me.
Backing up your data.
Oh, right, backups.
Think about it.
Okay.
What if you get hit with ransomware?
Uh-huh.
Or your computer just crashes?
Right.
How much would you lose?
Yeah, that would be bad.
Your photos, your documents, your financial records?
I haven't backed up my computer in ages.
That's pretty common.
It is.
Yeah. But setting up a regular backup routine
Okay.
is one of the best things you can do
Uh-huh.
to protect yourself from losing everything.
All right. Are there different ways to do that?
Yeah, there are lots of options these days.
Like,
External hard drives, cloud storage services,
uh-huh.
even hybrid solutions.
Okay.
The key is to find one that works for you
Right.
and make it a habit.
Okay. Backing up my data is going on my to-do list. For sure.
Good. And remember, it's not just about protecting yourself.
No.
It's about protecting everyone
Okay.
by taking these steps.
Right.
You're not only making yourself safer online,
Uh-huh.
you're helping to create a safer environment for everyone.
So it's kind of like herd immunity, but for cybersecurity?
Exactly. The more people who practice good security,
Right.
the harder it is for the bad guys to win.
And the safer we all become.
That's the goal.
I like that analogy, right? So we've covered a lot today.
We have.
From global threats to what we can do personally to stay safe.
It's a lot to think about.
It is. So what's next?
Well, you found a few articles that talked about the future of cybersecurity
Oh, yeah.
and some potential solutions.
Right.
I think it would be good to explore those
Okay.
and leave our listener with some hopeful takeaways.
Sounds good to me. Okay, welcome back for the last part of our cybersecurity deep dive. We've talked about a lot of scary stuff.
Yeah, we've had.
From AI-powered attacks
Yeah.
to scammers and everything in between.
Uh-huh.
And we've also explored what we can all do
Yeah.
to protect ourselves.
It's important to be proactive.
It is, but you also sent me some articles
I did.
that hinted at some potential solutions out there.
Yes.
And what the future of cybersecurity might look like.
Exactly. And while all this can seem pretty overwhelming,
It does.
it's important to remember that people are working on solutions.
Okay.
Security researchers and companies are constantly developing new tech and strategies
To fight back.
to combat these evolving threats.
So it's not all doom and gloom.
No, not at all.
There's hope on the horizon.
Absolutely. One area that I think is really promising is AI and machine learning,
Okay.
not just for attack, but for defense as well.
So we talked about how AI can be used to launch really sophisticated attacks.
Right.
But it can also be used to stop them.
Exactly. You can fight fire with fire,
Right.
but with algorithms.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, AI-powered security systems can analyze tons of data in real time.
Uh-huh.
They can look for patterns that suggest an attack,
Oh, wow.
and they can even respond automatically to contain threats before they cause damage.
So it's like a super-powered immune system for your digital life.
That's a great way to put it.
I like that those articles also talked about the need to work together, right?
Yes, collaboration is key.
It's not just about individual companies or researchers
Right.
coming up with solutions on their own.
No, it's about sharing information and best practices.
So everyone's on the same page.
Exactly. Cybersecurity is a global challenge.
Uh-huh.
So it requires a global response.
What does that look like?
Well, we need governments, industry, and researchers all working together
Okay.
to share threat intelligence, develop common standards,
Right.
and coordinate their efforts to fight cybercrime.
So it's like a global cybersecurity task force.
Yeah, something like that. And we're actually seeing more initiatives
Really?
that are trying to encourage this kind of collaboration.
Like what?
Well, there are organizations like the Global Cyber Alliance
Okay.
and the Forum of Incident Response and Security Teams, or FIRST,
Okay.
that bring together security professionals from all over the world
To do what?
to share information and coordinate responses to big cyber attacks.
That's great. Those articles also mention the need for a shift in mindset, though.
Yes, definitely.
Like moving away from this reactive approach to security.
Right, where we're always playing catch up with the attackers.
Exactly.
We need to be more proactive
Okay.
and build security into systems from the very beginning.
So instead of being reactive,
Yes.
we need to be proactive.
Exactly. And this shift in mindset is happening everywhere,
Oh, yeah.
from individual developers to large companies and even government agencies.
Like how?
Well, for example, the National Institute of Standards and Technology,
Or NIST.
right, NIST, has developed a framework for cybersecurity
Okay.
that emphasizes a risk-based approach.
What's that?
It means that organizations need to identify and prioritize their most critical assets
Uh-huh.
and then put security controls in place to protect them.
So it's about being strategic
Yes.
and proactive, not just reacting to every new threat.
Exactly. And it's not just about technology either.
Uh,
It's also about education and awareness.
what do you mean?
We need to teach people how to stay safe online.
Okay.
That means teaching them basic security practices,
Right.
like using strong passwords and being wary of phishing,
Uh-huh.
but it also means helping them understand the bigger picture.
So not just being a tech-savvy user,
Right.
but being a cybersecurity-aware citizen.
I like that. And the good news is
Yeah.
there are more and more resources available
Really?
to help people learn about cybersecurity.
Like what?
There are online courses, training programs, even games and simulations
Oh, wow.
that can make learning about cybersecurity fun.
That's cool. Okay, so you've got AI-powered defenses,
Mm-hmm.
global collaboration,
Right?
a focus on security from the start,
Yes.
and more education and awareness.
It's all connected.
It's starting to sound a bit more optimistic.
It is, but is it enough?
That's the question.
Are we really making progress in the fight against cybercrime?
It's a tough one.
It is. The threats are always changing.
Right.
And attackers are always looking for new weaknesses.
So what can we do?
I think we need to stay focused on what works,
Okay.
investing in cybersecurity, collaborating with each other,
Uh-huh.
and raising awareness about the importance of security.
Those are all good things.
And I think those efforts give us reason to be hopeful.
Hopeful, but not complacent, right?
Exactly. We can't just sit back and assume everything will be okay.
So what should we be doing
We need to stay vigilant, stay informed, and keep adapting
to the new threats?
as the threat landscape changes.
Cybersecurity is a journey, not a destination.
That's a good way to put it.
And we all have a role to play
We do.
in making the digital world safer.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been a good conversation.
It has. We explored the threats and the vulnerabilities,
Mhm.
but also the potential solutions and reasons to be optimistic.
It's important to focus on the positive.
It is. Any final thoughts you want to leave our listener with?
I think the biggest takeaway is that cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
I agree.
We all need to do our
To
part.
protect ourselves, our organizations, and our communities.
That's right. And by working together, staying informed,
Uh-huh.
and being proactive about security,
Right.
we can create a safer and more resilient digital future for everyone.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for treating me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been insightful and a little scary at times,
I know what you mean.
but I definitely learned a lot.
Good. I'm glad.
Yet I'm feeling motivated to step up my own cybersecurity game.
That's great to hear. Even small steps can make a big difference.
That's right, to our listener. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes, thank you.
We hope you found this deep dive informative and empowering.
We hope you feel more prepared.
And until next time, stay safe out there in the digital world.